On TV, on radio, and on your smartphone. This is Talk TV.
I'm Piers Morgan. Uncensored tonight, protesters make global headlines with this orange powder protest at the World Snooker Championships. Now boss Barry Hearn says he will sue them and that eco-protesters belong in jail. He joins me live. Students at the UK's top university revolt over a debate featuring feminist philosopher Kathleen Stock. But I thought hearing opposing views was the entire point of being at university. We'll have that debate, if they allow us to, the little snowflakes. Plus, a London theatre urges white people to stay away from a performance exploring racial issues so it can be free of the white gaze. Do black people really need safe spaces like this, or is it just actually racism?
Live from the News Building in London, this is...
Welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. So we normally start this show, I don't know, by talking about people who moan, who whine, who complain about life. The woke brigade, you know the ones I'm talking about, the whining little wastrels that wreck our ability to have fun. It's become fashionable to be fragile, trendy to be traumatised. There's validation in being a victim. And I know all about being a victim, by the way. I'm an Arsenal fan. We blew an 8-point lead at the top of the Premier League to gift another title to oil-rich Manchester City. There they are, lifting the trophy yesterday, rubbing it squarely in my bitter and twisted face. But somehow, as I keep being reminded on social media, it's wrong for me to categorise what happened to my team as failure. It was a great success, apparently. And if I say otherwise, well, I'm demeaning the players. How did we get to this place? Every day we're overwhelmed by stories about people who are motivated by nothing and offended by everything. But not today. Today, I found an antidote. A shepherd to guide us through this maelstrom of self-inflicted misery. A little ray of sunshine through the black clouds of wokery. His name is Michael Block. You may not have heard of him. You probably, if you don't like golf, you definitely won't have heard of him. But it's not about golf. It's about a lot more than golf. Michael Block is 46 years old. He's a club professional, just a journeyman club professional. He gives golf lessons every week for about $150 a time at his local club in California. Literally teaches people how to play the game. Once a week, he takes a bucket of balls out himself and whacks them around. Well, last week, he made the cut at a major PGA golf tournament, one of the top 4 tournaments in the world in golf. It was for the first time in his life, and he found himself rubbing shoulders with the superstars of the game. He didn't just make up the numbers. He did incredibly well, and on the last day, he found himself paired with Rory McIlroy, one of the greatest players in golf.
Are you serious? Wow. That should be fun. We're going to have a good time.
Well, it was fun. That everyman humility and infectious spirit. He couldn't believe he was going to be playing with Rory McIlroy. Powered him through the week and on to that final Sunday yesterday. And the more interviews that he gave, Michael Block, the more that he played, the more the crowds, both there and on television, fell in love with this guy. He was the regular Joe, given an extraordinary once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that he seized. And boy, did he seize it. Watch what he did yesterday.
Seconds ago at the 15th. The fairy tale story gets better. A home run for Michael Block.
Straight in. I mean, you hardly ever see that, by the way. It either bounces before it goes in or it rolls in. How often do you see a hole-in-one go straight in? And then the next question, how often do you see it done by a 46-year-old journeyman club professional in a major tournament when he's playing with Rory McIlroy in front of thousands and thousands of spectators? If Michael Block couldn't believe it had gone in, it's because nobody else could either. This shouldn't be happening. Top-ranking stars go through careers without ever doing that. It's like scoring a hat-trick at the World Cup final in football. And in this case, it was scored by a player you've never heard of, making his first appearance. Well, friends and family watching his local club, where he normally works as a golf instructor, matched that of the thousands of spectators he's electrified all week. And to cap it all off, he then gave this remarkably moving summary of the week that I think reflected his very genuine gratitude.
You said it yesterday that this was the best week of your life. What do you call it now?
Thanks, Amanda. I appreciate you making me cry. It's amazing. I'm living a dream. I'm making sure that I enjoy this moment. I've learned that after my 46 years of life that it's not going to get better than this. There's no way. No chance in hell. So I'm going to enjoy this, and thank you.
What a guy. Humble, funny, inspirational, decent, hard-working, a real grafter. And how moving was that? How inspiring. A normal bloke who defied ridiculous odds to tear up a major sporting tournament. Michael Block, the Rocky Balboa of golf. In this world of little whiners, we should all be more like Michael Block. Well, I'm joined fortuitously by the legendary sports promoter, Barry Heard. Now, Barry, you came on to talk about something else, and we'll get to that in a moment. But first of all, I love this story, because it's not about golf. It's not really about sport. It's about life, never giving up, keep trying. All these virtues which have become unfashionable, mental strength, resilience, all that stuff.
Well, what's not unfashionable is that we all love a Cinderella story.
Yeah.
We all remember what happened to Cinderella. She went to the ball. She lost her shoe, but she got the winning prince in the end. And what Michael Block did was show that anyone can do it.
Yeah.
You know, in life, in sport, you can only be the best you can be. Nothing else.
Do you feel that we're in an era now where people just give up too easily on everything?
No, not necessarily. I think we're in an era of ultimate professionalism, which sometimes takes the part of losing the personalities. That's driven out of you.
Well, I wasn't talking about sports so much. I'm talking about
life.
Society. So it seems to me like your generation, right, would never give an inch about anything.
No.
You came from a grafter generation with a grafter mindset. Not for you celebrating losing or weakness, right? I mean, it just wouldn't cross your mind.
No, well, I think we did come from a different time, but I think that spirit is still there, somewhere out there to be found. And certain individuals don't do anything but shock you when a Michael Block comes on the scene. Whoa, goodness me, never seen it before. Actually, we have. We've seen it a dozen times.
Yeah.
And it's memories that live with us forever. And that will live with him forever, but also, in a way, and I think in the state that golf's in, with the Live Tour on the one side, PGA on the other, we forgot what the game's about. It's about people like Michael Block.
Well, it was interesting because Brooks Koepka won, obviously, and he's a Live Tour golfer. Rory McIlroy was pretty good to him, actually, and hugged him and congratulated him and didn't say much about Liv during this tournament. It looks to me like they're beginning to calm down, maybe do a deal.
I think differently, Piers. I think they're all realise that this is a horrendous accident waiting to happen, that this Live Tour has actually reduced enormously the value of golf because of oversupply in the market. Golf doesn't rate particularly well on television, frankly. And the Live Tour has given an alternate broadcast opportunity to other broadcasters. I think they're all beginning to realise this is a lot of money involved. And for the players that draw in it, they've had some big signing on fees, etc. That's not necessarily the answer, because they're suddenly realising you can't buy history and you can't buy special moments that people like Michael Block supplied. It goes beyond the normal realms of who's getting a few $1 million more.
Let's talk about why you were due to come on here, which is the eco-warriors, who, obviously, amongst their many targets, the Just Stop Oil protesters attacked the World Snooker Championship. Let's take a look.
Terrible scenes here at the Crucible.
So I was on air when this happened, and it was pretty shocking for everybody there. Obviously, people watching on television. It was designed to shock. It was designed to get our attention. First of all, what was your reaction when you saw this?
Well, annoyance, obviously, you could imagine. I've got paying customers, normal working class people that have saved up. To get a ticket, by the way, in the Crucible to watch the snooker is not easy. Sells out already, next year's already sold out. These people have been lucky enough, they've got a ticket, they're in place, ready to enjoy their special moment, and it was spoilt by someone. My secondary thought really was, this is nothing to do with Just Stop Oil. because it didn't do their cause any good at all. In fact, it was the opposite. I think it damaged their cause.
It made me want to go and buy oil.
Well, it made me not want to give anything. As individuals, we give to lots of different charities or different... there's no way. They may well have a case, by the way, ecologically speaking. But by doing that, I think they cheapen themselves into sort of the bully boys of sport, because sport is such an easy target, Piers. You know, you can't... I mean, I believe in security. I think we've got good security. We have for 40 years.
But I don't see why wrecking the fun for ordinary people up to go to this. It's their big annual event.
How does that put across their point? The answer is it doesn't at all. If anything, it's a huge negative to them. And working class people and ordinary people everywhere in the world would look on that with disdain. And they wouldn't look at it and say, well, let's look into this Just Stop Oil principle. They look at it and saw a rich kid getting some attention by doing something that's actually really easy to do. It's a bit of bully boy tactics. They bought a ticket. I think they paid 300 quid for their ticket. They bought a top-class ticket with all the trimmings and went out and spoiled everyone's enjoyment for the night.
You're now going to sue Just Stop Oil activist Edred Whittingham, who was the guy we saw there. Tell me about that.
Well, it's interesting because I was frustrated. I mean, I was frustrated when I spent 2.5 hours on the M25 in a junction. That's another time, another story. But the same principle applies. It's putting ordinary people, you know, out of pocket or out of place. I'm frustrated about what can I do? Do I make the whole place into a fortress of security and take away that very special atmosphere that exists at Crucible? I don't want to do that. It's never been necessary before. I've had 2 streakers. We got rid of them quite quickly. But they weren't the same. They were just extroverts. Here we've got a situation where we sat down as a group and said, what do we do? Do we tighten security? Do we make it really body search, everybody coming? Is that what sport's really about now? My book says no. So I'm trying to think how I can be, you know, constructive in how we can deal with it. And we come up with this idea of the small claims court. Because we thought, well, you know, all these people have spent their money on a ticket, on their hotels, on their travel, maybe babysitters, whatever. So I wrote to the 410 people that witnessed that and lost their table that they were supposed to be watching and said, look, I believe you've got a claim. We will help you. We will help you formulate this. Let's take this little boy, this attention-seeking little boy. Let's ruin his life. Let's take him to the small claims court as many times as possible. I wrote to 410 people. 64 have come back and said, yes, we'd like to be part of this. So now our lawyers are working with them and saying, how do we help you? 64 different cases in the small claims court where he will be expected to make an appearance.
I like this because this will really get to the heart of these people.
Yes.
If they actually have to suffer that kind of sacrifice.
Well,
they might think twice about the way they protest. I've got no problem in people doing normal, peaceful protests.
None at all.
But when they deliberately wreck things which other people are enjoying, or they're stopping people going to work or whatever, they lose me.
They're not putting a point across. They're just disruptive for disruption's sake. They're attention seekers that are not actually saying, believe in this. We have a system in this country, it's called a democracy. It's not anarchy. This is a democracy, and there are ways of putting your point across. They chose to ignore it, and we have to take action. I see the protesters at the Dartford Tunnel got 3.5 years and 2.5 years. That's another one I'm thoroughly in favour of.
Yeah.
You know, I was in a traffic jam for 2.5 hours next to an ambulance trying to get through.
It's outrageous.
You know, a woman 3 cars away was in tears because she missed her father's funeral.
Yeah, disgusting.
You know, so what do? You can't just stand back. In our small way, we thought, let's just disrupt his life as much as he's disrupted others. And there are 64 letters going out.
And by the way, in a perfectly peaceful manner.
Totally.
He's just going to get a load of writs and it will cost him a load of money, hopefully.
I don't really care about the money. I want to give him some inconvenience.
Yes, quite right. Barry, I could talk to you all night. Just give me one little thing. My team, Arsenal, choked, in my opinion, the Premier League. They were 8 points clear, 8 games to go. Do you agree with me?
No. Look, I had 19 years as chairman of Leyton Orient. I know all about football, not at your level.
Yeah, but your expectation level was lower.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? And you're judging it on expectation level rather than reality. The reality is they're professional sportsmen, they're trained to win, and they're proud.
Is it fair that Manchester City have all this oil money, which allows them to have a grotesque financial advantage over everybody else?
There's 123... claims against them for them to justify and fight. this saga will run longer than Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap. It's going to go on forever. But at the end of the day, Arsenal, and I know you don't want this because you're through blue at Arsenal, at the end of the day, they weren't quite good enough.
You see, I don't agree. I just don't think they weren't mentally strong enough. They didn't believe
But
they
that
could
may
be
be
champions.
part of being not quite good enough.
They needed to be more like Michael Block. They needed to believe they belonged on the top stage.
No, they've got to do it over 40-odd games throughout a season in front of a very good, wherever the money's come from will be an issue answered later. But for the moment, hats off to Manchester City. They are one of the greats of my lifetime.
They are. They're a good team. All right, great to see you.
Always a pleasure, Miles.
Piers.
Miles. It's Miles and Miles. Where are we going?
I actually have a mate called Miles. He'd be pleased about that. You'll think you're talking about him. Good to see you.
Thanks, mate.
Eddie. Uncensored next. A war on free speech in the name of Professor Kathleen Stock is taking over Oxford University and could see the end of his famed debating club. Isn't hearing opposing viewpoints the entire point of debate? We'll be debating the lack of debate at Oxford next.
Passionate and always straight to the point. World-class broadcaster Vanessa Feltz is on Talk TV every night of the week. From politics to pop culture, there's no subject she shies away from. And remember,
if you're thinking about it, we're talking about it.
Join Vanessa Feltz on Talk TV every day from 4 p.m. He's back, and he's uncensored. Debating the breaking news and talking to the biggest names. Piers Morgan is live every week with a host of stars. Uncompromising, unmissable, and uncensored. And remember,
if you're thinking it, we're talking about it.
Piers Morgan, Uncensored, Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on Talk TV.
We're leading Britain's conversation. Oh no. With the People's Channel. No, already used. Every Little Helps. For God's sake, is nothing original anymore. It's finger-licking good. I'm loving it. Look, let's be honest. We don't have any fancy speechwriters here, but we do, and I promise you, discuss the issues that matter to you. Yes, I'm back. Talk TV, not with Morgan, just before him. Monday to Thursday at 7 p.m. Join me. Just do it. Well, that one too.
Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Professor Kathleen Stock is due to speak at Oxford University's 200-year-old Debating Society next month, but she's faced a furious backlash from students who say her supposedly transphobic views mean she shouldn't be given a platform. was the same academic who had to quit her job as a lecturer at the University of Sussex after being targeted by activists for her views on gender identity. Oxford University's Vice-Chancellor has defended Stock's appearance as a matter of free speech, but the university is braced for up to 1,000 protesters and counter-protesters to take action when she appears at the end of the month. The student union is understood to have cut ties with the Debating Society. So there's a huge rift now at the heart of Oxford University, and it all begs the question, how exactly are you supposed to have a debating society if you don't actually allow proper debate with people whose opinions you don't like? Well, joining me now is podcast host and comedian Constantine Kissin, Professor of Sociology at Oxford University, Dr. Michael Briggs, and Oxford student and trans rights activist Riz Posnett. Well, welcome to all of you. Riz, you're over there in Oxford. Let me start with you. You've been on the show before. I don't get this. The whole point of going to university is you're supposed to have open minds, hear views you may not like, challenge them, put your own views forward, evolve, learn. What's all this censorship about?
Yeah, I mean, effectively, this is students exercising their own free speech, right? Like, she has been platformed by this institution. Students have consistently said, we don't think she should speak here. We don't want her here because her views are part of a broader hate campaign and moral panic that's really damaging the lives of trans people. So students have institutions in the student union, and now the university have overruled that vote. I also want to clarify something here. The SU, the student union, voted to cut ties with the Debating Society, the Oxford Union, not over this, but over an extensive history of them bullying, harassing, and just having like general bigotry, racism within their institution. So it's not over this nuanced issue. It's about the history of the.
But on the
Oxford
specific
Union.
point about Kathleen Stock, you tweeted this. You've got some effing nerve, Kathleen. You've brought your hatred into our community, and now you use the threats we receive because of your actions to try to garner more sympathy for your victim narrative. Oxford doesn't want your bigotry here and will make it known. Now, I've studied the Kathleen Stock saga. I actually come from Sussex, so had a vested interest in my county and this university. What is it about her that is so hateful? What has she said or done that is actually so wicked?
Yeah, Kathleen has consistently, so what she does is she's academic front, basically, for this broader movement, which she has endorsed. She's endorsed Posey Parker, who has said horrific things that I don't think would be appropriate.
No, but hang on, I'll ask you, what does Kathleen Stock, what has Kathleen Stock herself said or done to warrant this treatment?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I understand. I don't know if you've read her book, Piers. She consistently misgenders people. She talks about whether like trans ideology should exist, whether trans people should be part of the LGBTQ community. Now, what she talks about is part of a massive campaign against trans people, and she wasn't kicked out of Warwick University. She left because she was bummed that people didn't like what she had to say because it hurts real trans people.
Riz,
can I just?
Yeah, I have to. I've got two other guests. Here's my point. You see, I have looked at what she said. She says many trans women are still males with male genitalia. Many are sexually attracted to females. They should not be in places where females undress or sleep in an unrestricted way. Self-ID threatens a secure understanding of the concept of lesbian, and so on. She stands up for the sanctity of biological sex, and I'm struggling to find out what is so offensive about all this. It seems to me what's more offensive are young students who think that biological sex is a movable feast that can be denied and that the science is to be ignored and that anyone can put their hand up and say they're anything they like and they have to be respected. That I find more offensive than anything Kathleen Stock has said.
So that's absolutely fine if you find that offensive, Piers. The reality is, as much as she exercises her right to free speech, so do we. The students have consistently said, as I've mentioned before, that they don't welcome her here. And specifically, the tweet that you quoted
but that's not honouring free speech, is it, Riz? That's the opposite of free speech.
Yes,
what
it
you're
is.
doing is deplatforming people whose
about
opinions you don't agree with. My argument is, I agree with a lot of what she says. I don't get it. What you're doing is you're
Yeah,
basically,
that's fine. That's
you're
fine.
basically
You're allowed to
behaving as a
agree.
group. You're behaving like a bunch of young fascists. You want people, only people, who toe the line to your worldview. And her worldview, by the way,
There's
is
a bit
shared
of a
by
delay.
the
Could you
vast
just let me know
majority
when I
of
can come
people.
back to those points?
All right, well, let me come to the other panelists
Can I respond
first.
now?
Let me come to the other panelists.
Okay.
Constantine, this strikes me as right to the heart of the malaise at our academia, worldwide, actually. This worldview, I don't like this person's views, even though they're not that controversial at all. In fact, most people would agree with them. And yet they have to be deplatformed, abused, branded bigots, blah, blah, blah. This right here is the heart of this problem.
And let me answer the question that Riz didn't answer when you asked her what Kathleen has done that is so wrong is she's blasphemed against this new religion that says trans women are women. And as you say, the vast majority of the public don't agree with that. And therefore, students have to then become little fascists, like you said, and shut this down because they can't tolerate hearing an opinion that they don't like. And so to the extent that they have power, they're going to use it to bully people into not speaking in places that they can. I'm grateful that the government pushed through the bill, which now means universities have to ensure that free speech is respected there. It's very, very important that these people don't win because you can see their smug faces as they do this.
Oh, yeah.
And they enjoy the power and they enjoy exercising over people. And by the way, I've interviewed Kathleen on my show, Trigonometry. She's one of the sweetest, kindest, most generous, gentle people that you will meet. If she's hateful, then we're all hateful.
Well, this is the point, isn't it? What is going on there? Because a lot of the academic people there now seem to be rising up against this and supporting the concept of free speech, but that's causing a rift now in the university. What's really going on?
Well, I think it's good that things have come to a head and we finally can debate about whether we could listen to the very mild, as Constantine said, the very mild views of Kathleen Stock, which really represents the majority of British people. Now, maybe not the majority of students, but even the minority of students have a right to hear, if they if they want, to hear Kathleen Stock's views. And even people who are opposed to her, like Riz, should go along and listen and just decide why exactly what they disagree with.
What I don't understand is why this whole concept. When I've taken part in the Oxford Union, which I've done, and the Cambridge Union and others, I've always enjoyed it, but I've always gone there believing it was my job to try and make people come around to my way of thinking, which was an old debate. In fact, I was back at my old prep school for the first time in 50-odd years the other day, at the weekend, and I passed this old White House where the headmaster's wife used to hold debating society when I was about 7 or 8. And that we were encouraged at that age, challenge other views, listen to other views, formulate your own opinion and be unafraid to change it if you hear things which change your mind. This is all just gone out the window.
So the problem is if you have a certain identity or if you have a certain view, then you can say, I'm so vulnerable, I can't listen to any opposing views that not only can I not listen, but even the very existence of those other views being articulated somewhere, within a 5-mile radius.
Has Kathleen Stock said anything that you see which would justify this kind of treatment?
No, of course not. No.
Piers, just to the point you made about when you go and when I went to the Oxford Union about trying to persuade people, think about what would be the circumstances in which you wouldn't want to persuade people and you would want to shut down people who disagree with you. The only circumstance in which you might be tempted to do that is if you know your arguments are rubbish.
Yeah.
And that is why these people are doing it.
Or if you're living in Russia, China or North Korea,
right,
where you would then call the secret police and they would come and remove the person with the offensive opinion, which was one that the government didn't agree with or whatever, and they would be taken off to some detention centre in Siberia. I mean, this is where we're heading. This is what they don't get, these students, is that once you accept that you're allowed to do this to people who have perfectly mainstream opinions, this is a slippery slope to totalitarianism, right?
Quite.
All right, Riz,
Can I respond to that?
You can respond to that. You're a totalitarian barbarian.
So you've talked about fascism. Fascism as a far-right ideology about suppressing stuff. To be clear, this has been a consistent democratic decision in student institutions.
On that point,
right? Students have made this together.
On that point, do you object to being called right-wing?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I only mention that because when we invited the president of Oxford University LGBTQ plus Society to come on the programme, he replied, I think it's a he, this is Adi Harandiman. Do you know that person?
Yeah, and I'd actually like to talk about that. That person did not come on your show because they have been subject to this consistent program of hate that I've been talking about.
Well, that's not the
let me just
reason.
finish this point.
Well, hang on, I'm going to finish my point.
Well, it was,
Hang
because I
on,
know this person
Riz,
personally.
That wasn't the reason given by this person who replied, hiya, to my producer, nice to meet you. We're reluctant to work with right-wing media. So I'm not right-wing. I've never been right-wing. You're not right-wing.
I'm
You
happy
object to
answer
being
that as a
called
question.
right-wing. I object to being called right-wing. So we found a point of consensus.
So the reason that other people don't want to take up interviews like this or be on platforms like this is because of the hate campaign.
Because they don't like debating, Riz.
By fans of Kathleen
At least you
Stock.
have the gumption
Can I
to
just
come on.
respond to some of those points, Piers?
Well, look, here's my point. I was paying you a compliment. You do at least come on and debate with me, right?
Yeah,
But here's my problem with the rest of your colleagues.
Person didn't come on.
They don't want to
mentioned-
debate it because they don't want to hear someone saying something they don't like.
I'd really love to respond to that point. So you mentioned that the tweet that I said in response to Kathleen. Now, what you didn't mention is that Kathleen was responding to a tweet by Addy, who you previously mentioned, publishing a death threat that they received by one of her fans. That's why people don't want to be on platforms like this. Now, with regards to a debate, first of all, I don't believe that trans lives should be a debate, but that's not in question here anyway.
It's not about that.
The Oxford Union wasn't trying to platform
no one's
a debate.
debating trans.
They weren't trying to put on a debate. There weren't
Riz, you
equal
can't just keep
sides on it.
talking. We've had this conversation before. No one's debating trans lives. No one's debating trans rights to fairness and equality. I've certainly never. I've only ever supported trans rights to fairness and equality. But if you're going to stand there now on television and say that you believe what's happening in women's sport, for example, is anything but grotesquely unfair and unequal, then say so, if you genuinely believe it.
I think what's grotesquely unfair and unequal is the violence and hatred that trans people are consistently facing in the media, in person, in public, and online as a result of your fans, Kathleen Stock.
Wasn't my question. Is it fair that trans athletes are now demolishing women born with female biological bodies at women's sport? Is that fair, yes or no?
This is a really boring point, but I'm happy to answer
Just
it.
give me a simple yes or no.
That's not happening,
You
and
think
trans people
it's not happening?
should be
All right.
absolutely allowed to...
OK, it's not happening. You're obviously not reading the papers, you're not watching TV, you are totally oblivious to the reality of what's happening. But Riz,
Oh, my bad, didn't realise.
OK, it's OK, no problem. Ignorance is bliss, right? Good to see you. Thank you very much. I mean, again, Constantine, it's the mindset. It wouldn't even consider the possibility that what's happening in sport and women's sport is horrible because she has no idea, has no interest. Only interested in the impact
it's
on
a
trans
religion,
people.
Piers. I've said this to you before. I'll say it again. It's a religious worldview whereby your beliefs do not require evidence. They're based on a faith, right? And that's how these people think. So the reason I mentioned the Kathleen Stock, what she's doing, as all of us are doing, is violent.
Whereas she thinks she's entitled to call this woman, Kathleen Stock, a bigot and so on and so on. I want to just quickly ask you about something else, because you're a comedian. John Cleese has warned that his Life of Brian stage show, based on the movie, shouldn't include a scene about a man wanting to be a woman and having a baby, which is ironic given the subject matter we've been discussing. Let's take a look at the famous clip.
Why are you always on about women, Stan? I want to be one. Do you oppress me?
It was funny at the time. It's kind of ironic now. But even John Cleese feels compelled to perhaps remove that because it may offend people. The concept of a joke about men having babies. But we've reached a point where, yeah, there will be protests. about that because it's offensive.
Isn't it amazing? Because it looks like they're literally quoting from 2023 conversations in a satirical piece of satire becoming real life. And what it shows you, I think, most of all, how far we've come in this delusion.
I totally agree because actually, Dr. Briggs, I mean, that was deemed to be humour at the time because it was so ludicrous that nobody ever assumed that would actually be a reality. But we've reached that point where satire's coming true.
Yes, yes, indeed. But I think, though, just to take up the point about the religion, I mean, the reason why there's so much hate towards Kathleen Stock is because she's a lesbian, because she's an apostate. So she's part of the LGBT community, but she's articulating a different view, and so therefore she's much more threatening than most people would be.
I saw a comedian called Freddie Quinn on Morning TV, Good Morning Britain today, and he made the point, there's a scene from that movie with a guy with a lisp. Does that have to go? Because it's offensive to people with speech impediments. There's a scene with a character called Incontinentia buttocks. Is that offensive to people with IBS? There's a scene with people with big noses. Is that offensive to people with big noses? There's one about blessing the cheesemakers. Do we have to reach out to a National Association of Dairy Farmers to see if they're upset by it? And the truth is, actually, probably yes, because somebody somewhere will be already getting the pitchforks out, ready to blow their gasket about all these scenes being offensive, until eventually there is no life at Brian.
And that's why I think all of us have to just ignore these people being silly, which is what they're doing, and say, you're allowed to be offended. Nothing happens when you get offended. Nothing changes, the world does not start revolving
That's what
around
Ricky
you.
Gervais always says.
Right.
Yeah, he has a right to say what he says. You have a right to be offended. Your right to be offended doesn't overcome his own right to crack jokes. Thank you both very much indeed. I appreciate it. Uncensored next, a London theatre hops on the US trend for dedicating performances to black-only audiences known as blackout nights. Is that empowering or segregating? That debate is next.
Passionate and always straight to the point, world-class broadcaster Vanessa Feltz is on Talk TV every night of the week. From politics to pop culture, there's no subject she shies away from. And remember,
If you're thinking about it, we're talking about it.
join Vanessa Feltz on Talk TV every day from 4 p.m. He's back, and he's uncensored. Debating the breaking news and talking to the biggest names. Piers Morgan is live every week with a host of stars. Uncompromising, unmissable, and uncensored. And remember,
if you're thinking it, we're talking about it.
Piers Morgan Uncensored, Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on Talk TV.
We're leading Britain's conversation. Oh no. With the People's Channel. No, already used. Every little helps. For God's sake, is nothing original anymore. It's finger licking good. I'm loving it. Look, let's be honest. We don't have any fancy speechwriters here, but we do. And I promise you, discuss the issues that matter to you. Yes, I'm back. Talk TV, not with Morgan, just before him. Monday to Thursday at 7 p.m. Join me. Just do it. Well, that one too.
This is Talk TV.
New trend is sweeping theatreland in the UK and US. Blackout performances are dedicated to black-only audiences. Those who are not black are asked not to buy tickets. The Theatre of Royal Stratford East in London says no one's excluded from attending their new show, Tambo and Bones, but promotional material makes clear that white people aren't wanted at the production on the night in question. Says a blackout night is a purposeful creation of an environment in which an all black identifying audience can experience and discuss an event in performing arts free from the white gaze. So does this mean I can go if I identify as a black man? There would be some on the woke side who would have, well, they have trouble disagreeing with that, given they believe in limitless self-identity. But it is more importantly, is it ever okay to exclude audiences based on skin colour? What would happen, for example, if it was the other way around? If this was a white-only audience? Well, I'm joined by the Talk TV contributor Esther Krakow and the Black Lives Matter organiser and activist Iman Aidens. All right, Iman, I'm just trying to picture what would happen if I put on a theatrical production in London and it said it was for whites only, or people identifying as white, which is obviously a ludicrous phrase, but you would go nuts. You would say that is blatant racism, segregation, dragged us kicking and screaming back to the dark days of appalling bigotry. You would?
Well, it depends on the context, right?
There's no whites-only audience.
It depends on the context.
No black people allowed. What would you say?
Well, I think you're perfectly right. It would be akin to racists finding more ways to be more racist.
So why is it okay this way around?
Okay, so we have to put it into context. It was 1 out of the 29 shows.
Doesn't matter.
Yes, it does. Let's put it into context, Piers. You want to forget about context. Context is everything. It is 1 out of the 29 shows that was targeted towards black people. And at no point did they say certain people were not excluded. In fact, they actually said it verbatim on their website. No one is excluded, and yet you have found racism.
No. I just read the rest of what they said. It's pretty clear. You are not supposed to go if you're not black.
No, please consider booking other dates.
Right, exactly.
I think the context, you're right, the context is important. I think the issue here is when it's talking about sort of, blackouts, and it's trying to gather an audience of black people that they believe have the same experience.
Right. Exactly.
This doesn't transpose the same way it does in the US and the UK, right? A black person in the UK could be black African, black British, black from the Caribbean, right? In the US, the conversation around race is completely different, and that's why it's a problem. Obviously, when you bring this to the UK, people are going to be like, what are you talking about? This is, especially in London, the most multicultural city in the country.
Can you see any merit to it?
Of course not. But I don't even think it makes sense in the American context.
Why is that? If you're talking about safe spaces, because let's just be clear, we're talking about safe spaces.
What do you mean safe space? What does that mean?
Okay, so
you wouldn't feel safe if I came along?
No. Again, context. We're talking about a play that was done by black people, for black people, targeted for black people.
So?
So what? 1 out of the... Again, let's just be clear, because you're clearly not getting this message. It is basically akin to the disabled community putting on 29 shows, and 29 shows about disabilities, and then one of those shows is targeted towards the disabled community. That is what it is akin to, and yet you have a problem. Why is that, Piers? Have you genuinely asked yourself why it's different between disabilities or disabled community or Jewish, but when it comes to black,
my problem is that you have already conceded that if it was the other way round, and this was a whites-only night of this theatrical performance, you would say racist. And that's my problem.
Safe spaces.
It's
Well,
the
black
double
people are
standard.
disproportionately affected by racism, so therefore it's about safe spaces. This play is about racism, so therefore we should have a safe space for black people as we are disproportionately affected by racism.
I don't think you tackle...
You wouldn't say that to a woman. You wouldn't say that to a woman when she was talking about abuse, and therefore she wanted, and they wanted, and she wanted a safe space.
I'm sorry.
You say that.
The idea of safe spaces and black people needing safe spaces is extremely patronising.
But we're talking about racism.
Okay,
let her finish.
What about Asian people? Do Asian people need safe spaces from racism?
When talking about
Asian people...
I'm answering your question.
We don't have this conversation.
When talking about...
Let Esther finish.
No, she just asked me a question, so I'm answering it. When talking about Asian racism, I think they deserve a bit of a safe space. When they're talking about their own experiences...
From black people or from white people?
all types of people that are going to
All right,
promote
Esther,
judgment. Because it's about being free of judgment.
Esther, let me ask you. Esther, let me
free
ask
of
you.
white
Hang-
judgment,
Mark,
free of
Mark,
Asian
Mark,
judgment,
let
free
Esther-
of all types.
Let somebody
of
else speak,
judgment.
please.
No, I'm going to.
Or we're going to have a
Them.
safe space where you get removed so that only I can be
Happily,
heard speaking.
happily, and I'll say bye to you both.
I will have a one night only Piers.
Happily, I'll say bye to
Only
you both. I'll
Piers.
see you on Saturday. I'll say bye
I'll
to
have,
you.
I
and
have
I
one
won't
night
be
of the
back,
show
no
where
problem.
only I am allowed to speak and you're not allowed to because of your skin colour. How would you like that?
Well, that's called racism.
Exactly. Exactly my point.
No, it's not. It's
Esther, let me
completely
ask you
different.
this. What would most black friends of yours or family think about this? I mean, in other words, is it something where a lot of black people might go, you know what, actually, I can see some merit to this?
They would see it as an American importation, right?
Does that mean necessarily a bad thing?
I think that it would.
No, it's not.
It would be seen. It would be seen as ridiculous, but ridiculously, particularly American, right? Because black people are not a monolith, which we can all agree on. Black people come from various parts of the world. They have different
But they
cultures.
share similar
This idea that there is a shared black experience,
But they
I think,
share
is
similar-
ludicrous.
But they
Other
do.
than the color
They
of our
do.
skin.
No,
but I
they
don't.
do.
But you
But
have
you
to
just-
accept
you
there are
just-
many connotations you're adding to that.
by your own
I could
testament,
say
you
that.
said
I
that
could
we
say
have
that
shared
as a black
experiences
person, I
by
faced more racism from Asian and Middle Eastern people, so I should have a safe space from those people. Can you even
That's if you want to
identify
be
them?
specific.
No,
If
but
you want
that's
to be specific, you have the right to
ridiculous.
do
I don't think.
You
Okay,
have
let
the
me
right to do
interrupt.
that if you've been
Let me
abused.
speak.
You have
I
the
don't
right
think
to do
any
that,
form of
Esther.
art should ever be exclusionary on the grounds of skin colour, regardless of who it's targeted to or who it's made
We're
by.
talking about race
The
equity.
whole point of art is it should be for
But
everybody.
we're talking about race equity.
For
in this
everybody.
moment.
No.
Context.
I don't know. It's not right. There's nothing racially equal about this.
Piers.
It's racially unequal. You're saying no
Piers.
white people can come.
Context.
It's ridiculous.
What's the play about, Piers?
I've heard your art.
What's the play
It
about?
doesn't matter what it's
Yes,
about.
it does.
It
And
doesn't.
that's your issue. You want to negate context.
No,
and there is no
it doesn't
argument
matter if
from
every-
both of us without context. You know this, and yet you try to negate it.
No,
every
I don't
single
know
time
this.
here.
No, you
Deal
can't-
with the context. And if you
you
can't deal
can't-
with it, don't come with an
You
argument.
can't tell
deal
me.
with the context.
You can't tell me what I'm
No,
thinking.
exactly. But that's
right?
what you do to me.
Or what my opinion
And that's what
is.
people like you do to me.
People like
and
me?
Yes.
What do you mean
yes,
people like me?
Prejudice. Racially prejudiced people like yourself. That's what you do. That's why we need safe spaces.
You're calling me racially prejudiced.
I've done that several times, Piers. Why are you surprised?
Why are
What's
you
going
saying
on?
that?
Ignorance doesn't actually suit you.
That's ignorant, actually,
No,
what you
no,
just
it's
said.
not. I've just told you
I'm
that
not
several
racially
times.
prejudiced.
Okay,
and
so
what you just said
what's
is very
prejudice, Piers?
offensive.
What-
You
what's
shouldn't be
prejudice,
saying
Piers?
that.
Piers, what's prejudice?
Huh?
What's prejudice?
If
You've
you're
been
racially
learning.
prejudiced, you are a racist.
What's prejudice?
That's what you just called
Have you
me.
been learning? What's
I'm not
prejudice?
accepting that, sorry.
What's prejudice?
Esther, will you go and watch this?
Swiftly
No,
move
but I'm
on.
No, I don't think you should be calling me a racist.
Swiftly move
It's ridiculous.
on. I've done it several times, and yet you have a problem.
then you're
with the
wrong
third
every time.
I did it last year. You're talking
Well,
about
good
it
for
today as
you.
if it's a new surprise.
It's
It's,
a-
not.
it's-
I told you last year you were racially
it's a
prejudiced, and I'm telling
lazy-
you again
it's a
today.
lazy
and yet
thing
you
to
have no
say.
argument.
It's a
That's
lazy
your
thing to
argument.
say.
Lazy thing to say. Well done.
Because I'm
Piers.
not
You're doing
racially
well.
prejudiced, never
You're doing
have
well.
been.
What's racial prejudice, Piers?
It's being a
Answer the
racist.
question. Answer the question.
It's judging
And that's
people
what you do.
prejudicially
That's what you
on their
do.
skin colour.
That's what you
Actually,
do.
rather like
That
what
is
this
what
theatrical
you
production
do.
is doing.
That's
All right.
what you do.
We've got to leave it there. Thank you both very much. I appreciate it. Uncensored next after Cannes honoured Johnny Depp with a standing ovation. His Hollywood's Depp boycott now over. Piers Pack is next.
Passionate and always straight to the point. World-class broadcaster Vanessa Feltz is on Talk TV every night of the week. From politics to pop culture, there's no subject she shies away from. And remember,
If you're thinking about it, we're talking about it.
join Vanessa Feltz on Talk TV every day from 4 p.m. He's back, and he's uncensored. Debating the breaking news and talking to the biggest names. Piers Morgan is live every week with a host of stars. Uncompromising, unmissable, and uncensored. And remember,
if you're thinking it, we're talking about it.
Piers Morgan Uncensored, Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on Talk TV.
We're leading Britain's conversation. Oh no. With the People's Channel. No, already used. Every little helps. For God's sake, is nothing original anymore. It's finger licking good. I'm loving it. Look, let's be honest. We don't have any fancy speechwriters here, but we do, and I promise you, discuss the issues that matter to you. Yes, I'm back. Talk TV, not with Morgan, just before him. Monday to Thursday at 7 p.m. Join me. Just do it. Well, that one too.
And coming up on The Talk, a London theatre is accused of setting a dangerous precedent after warning white patrons to stay away from a new play. Plus, has speeding Suella run out of road? The Home Secretary claims innocence over reports she asked civil servants to arrange a private penalty course. And find out why a 7 to 12-year age gap is being hailed the sweet spot for successful marriages. That's all coming up at 9.
Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. I'm joined by the former Conservative MP, Louise Mensch, and the Associate Editor of the Daily Mirror, Kevin Maguire. Well, what a stellar little duo we have here. So a survey came out, Kevin. I'm going to ask you first because I was your boss once.
You were.
That narcissists make the best bosses. Now, be very careful how you answer this.
I remember about a decade ago, The Guardian got a neuroscience writer to run the rule over you and decided you were a narcissist. And didn't you admit?
Actually,
didn't you admit to, in your interview with Amal Raja?
I did.
That you are.
I do think I have slight narcissistic streaks.
You know,
I don't think I'm fully blind. I think I'm a self-aware narcissist.
Yeah, I think you were like a brilliant and a terrible boss, depending on which day it was, if I'm honest.
I don't think anything's really changed. I was easily pleased and easily annoyed, I think. Louise, I mean, you've had a few bosses in your time.
I have.
Are narcissists actually, do they have the skill set for being bosses, do you think?
Well, I think they do, and I've had a bit of an unusual career. So my bosses have been either prime ministers or rock stars. So I don't think I've got any non-narcissistic bosses to compare it to. But if you've just got a slight touch of narcissism, then you're a good leader, you strike out, you try new things, a bit of the Elon Musk about you. You know, you have.
I mean, is Elon Musk a narcissist? Probably a little bit.
I don't.
But he's also doing a lot of stuff that's really interesting and good for the planet, right?
I think it goes along with the territory. I don't think he's a clinical narcissist, but he's got self-belief.
But he's driven, but then you see him all over the place on Twitter.
Yeah.
And it's not working out at the moment. It might in the end. I think you can be a touch of a narcissist, but if you're a total narcissist and you won't listen to anybody who's given sensible, constructive advice and support, then I think you become a bad boss. So, yeah.
I want to play a clip of someone who might well be a narcissist, Johnny Depp. A lot of opinion about him. This is him talking in Cannes about being boycotted by Hollywood.
Do I feel boycotted now? No, not at all. I don't feel boycotted by Hollywood because I don't think about it. I don't think about Hollywood. I don't have much further need for Hollywood myself. Everybody would love to be able to be themselves, but they can't because they must fall in line with the person in front of them.
I mean, Louise, he's got a point. I mean, we are living in a society where I went to the Chelsea Flower Show today. I must have had a dozen people come up to me saying, you speak for us. right? We're just, none of us are able to say what you say now. I was really struck by the number of people on that one thing.
Yeah.
Free speech, the ability to speak.
Absolutely, and the whole trans debates that we're talking about elsewhere
Yeah.
is part and parcel of this. And can you really blame Johnny Depp for saying, look, I'm incredibly rich, I'm incredibly famous, I've got all the awards. Maybe he just wants to let it go. He doesn't want to follow the Hollywood set path and say all the nice, polite things, and maybe he wants to let his middle-age spread fly. You know, maybe he'd like to go to the Chelsea
Talking of
Garden.
awards and middle-age spread and letting things fly, here is our YouTube award for Piers Morgan Uncensored passing 1 million subscribers.
That's impressive.
In 1 year, which makes us the fastest growing show in the country in terms of a new YouTube channel. So thank you very much for following us there. We have a lot of people watching on YouTube, which is the new place to go. What do you think? What's the answer with this free speech debate? And when you hear students like that girl, I shouldn't even identify as a girl, she's they, them. I don't know what the answer is when they just are so intransigent about hearing other views.
But look, the truth is this debate is as old as speech itself. It's not new. We're more aware of it now because of social media, and people can have platforms and they either use them themselves, try to shout others down, say they should be cancelled. But I remember the right wing in the 1980s trying to cancel anyone who was constantly
but
on
oddly,
the loony left.
Oddly, the woke left have become the new fascists. I mean, it's really interesting in their mindset.
I'm on the left, but
You're not
I'm a liberal.
hard
No. I think you've got to engage with people and respect other opinions. Have a robust debate.
Before we let you go, I want a quick prediction. US President and the next UK Prime Minister after both elections. Give me 2 names.
Right, it's going to be Joe Biden if it's Donald Trump opposing him, and I regret to say it's going to be Keir Starmer as the next Prime Minister.
Keir Starmer with a bit more of a smile, and Joe Biden.
I'm going to say Rishi Sunak and Ron DeSantis is the outside bet, but not impossible.
Yeah, I think the latter.
Well, we've got a clip now to play back, right?
Yeah. On the YouTube channel.
Guys, I've got to leave it there. Remember, follow us on YouTube. It's all there. Join the million, whatever you're up to. Keep it uncensored. Keep it uncensored.
Passionate and always straight to the point. World-class broadcaster Vanessa Feltz is on Talk TV every night of the week. From politics to pop culture, there's no subject she shies away from. And remember,
if you're thinking about it, we're talking about it.
Join Vanessa Feltz on Talk TV every day from 4 p.m. He's back, and he's uncensored. Debating the breaking news and talking to the biggest names. Piers Morgan is live every week with a host of stars. Uncompromising. Unmissable.